Started at the Kennedy Space Center at 6 a.m., November 7th, 1967, with liftoff scheduled for precisely 49 hours later. Inexorably, launch operations moved forward. Minor problems were encountered, but readily solved. Apollo 4 was tested more persistently than any previous American space vehicle. There were no indications of systems malfunctions. The countdown delays, so familiar in the early missions of previous programs, did not occur. Almost exactly as planned, Apollo 4 lifted off at 1 second after 7 o'clock, November 9th, 1967, with its first stage delivering 7.5 million pounds of thrust. Two minutes and 32 seconds later, as scheduled, the first stage burned out and separated, having consumed 4.5 million pounds of fuel. The separation and second stage ignition were also recorded by cameras carried on board the vehicle, 40 miles above the Earth. The camera gave engineers a close-up look at another event, the separation of the interstage structure. This was critically important because clearances were extremely small between the structure and the engines. Shown in animation, the second stage performed perfectly for more than 6 minutes. A source of major developmental problems, the stage propelled Apollo 4 to an altitude of more than 100 miles. Like the first stage, the second stage cut off and separated almost exactly on schedule. The third stage ignited and inserted Apollo 4 into a circular orbit, where it would remain for some 3 hours. In slightly more than 11 minutes, Apollo 4 proved out Saturn stages that had required years to develop. But the mission had over 8 hours to go. Now the orbiting Apollo 4 had to be checked out remotely in anticipation of the next series of events, and ground support facilities had to be evaluated. Flight controllers had to prepare the third stage for its first reignition in space, a capability which must be proved for the Apollo lunar mission. One of the few irregularities of the entire flight occurred at this point, when data suggested that a valve on the Saturn V third stage had not closed as planned for the reignition. But technical skill paid off. The flight controllers quickly revised the pre-ignition sequence to compensate for the potential problem. The third stage was fired as scheduled, propelling Apollo 4 into its elliptical orbit. "5 minutes and 25 seconds later, the stage shut down. Saturn V, whose guidance computer had made over 300 million calculations since liftoff, had placed the spacecraft on course. The third stage and a test model of the spacecraft lunar module fell away. The launch vehicle had done its job. A few moments later, the spacecraft's own propulsion system ignited and burned for 16 seconds, giving the spacecraft the velocity necessary to reach a peak altitude of more than 11,000 miles. The spacecraft was oriented so that its heat shield was shaded from the sun, soaking in a temperature 150 to 200 degrees below zero. The contrast between this cold temperature and the extremely high temperatures of re-entry would put the heat shield to an especially severe test. As Apollo 4 climbed, a camera pointing out the spacecraft window photographed part of what a future Apollo command pilot will see of our planet. These photographs were selected from a series shot every 11.4 seconds during a 2-hour, 12-minute period as the Earth passed in front of the spacecraft window. Apollo 4 reached 11,232 miles above the Indian Ocean at 5 hours, 46 minutes, 48 seconds after liftoff, and began its descent to Earth, responding to the pull of gravity, increasing in velocity as if it were speeding down a long hill. Some 2 hours, 20 minutes later, the spacecraft propulsion system again ignited, burning this time for 4.5 minutes. This burn accelerated the spacecraft toward a re-entry into the atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour, the speed anticipated for the re-entry of the Apollo lunar mission. The command module, which would contain the flight crew in a manned mission, was separated, then oriented with its heat shield forward. At about 8 hours, 40 minutes after liftoff, Apollo 4 re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. Temperatures on the heat shield, which was less than 3 inches thick, soon reached 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This was 1,000 degrees hotter than the launch pad flame bucket when Apollo 4 lifted off. Yet the temperature inside the command module never exceeded 70 degrees. Could we have seen the actual command module on its path toward Earth, it would have resembled a meteorite from space. The command module splashed into the Pacific Ocean within sight of its recovery ship, the USS Bennington. Although charred, the 5.5-ton command module, like the entire 3,000-ton Apollo...
T-minus 30 seconds and counting. Number 1 swing arm now being retracted from the Saturn V vehicle. 25 seconds and counting. T-minus 20, still counting at this time. T-minus 15. 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit. We have liftoff. Liftoff at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 5 seconds into the flight. We're looking good. We have cleared the tower. We have
Understand tower clearance. Houston Center assumes control. Pitch and roll program started. Our vehicle going now to an azimuth heading of 72 degrees. All 5 F1 engines firing, looking good. Given a green light at this time from range safety. Roll program is completed now. Pitch profile still in progress. 40 seconds. Mark 45 seconds. Our vehicle well beyond the beach now. Our IP impact point moving out well over water as desired. Mark 56 seconds. Our cabin pressure is relieving, coming down now from a pad base 16 pounds per square inch. Looking good. Mark 1 minute, 10 seconds coming up on a period of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Still looking good. Mark 1 minute, 25 seconds. Pass through max Q. Still looking good. Now 10 nautical miles in altitude, heading out beyond the Earth's atmosphere. We're on our way. Mark 1 minute, 45 seconds, 14 nautical miles in altitude, 12 nautical miles downrange. Velocity at this time, 4,600 feet per second and accelerating. Mark 2 minutes, Flight Director Cliff Charlesworth now polling members of his flight control team as to our status for staging, and we're standing by. Center engine has shut down. Our 4 outboard engines have shut down. Booster engineer reports ignition on our second stage. Our first stage will be falling away shortly now. It's day's work done. Again, the greatest weightlifting effort ever. Mark 2 minutes, 50 seconds, 40 nautical miles in altitude, 70 nautical miles downrange. Our interstage has separated this crucial timeline event right on schedule.
Minus 20 seconds. Minus 20. Patch release, are you ready?
GR, right?
GR. Minus 10. Mark. 9. Start ignition. 8. Flame burned. Engines armed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All engines running. Launch commit. Hold up. Roger, clock. That's okay, flight. All engines. Clock start, flight. Roger, clock. Hold down the conference. Hold power. Copy, tower. Houston, copy. Flight, Fido, we're going the IP. Roger, Fido. Roger. Flight, we've lost the CP. They're switching. Where? We lost all data? Good out in CP. They're switching machines. Okay, we still have good data then. Econ flight, how are you? Looking good, flight. LOM, Jim Morale, answer, come uplink disabled. How you, booster? It looks good, flight. S1C looks good. Roger. Flight report, S1. Mode 1, Bravo, Apollo 8. 1B. Fido, flight, how are you? We're go, flight, right on. Econ? Looking good, flight. GNC? We're good, flight. Booster? Go, flight. Okay, Capcom, we look good. Apollo 8, you're looking good. Yeah, really, flight. Roger. Roger on the cabin. Fido, you take the car, correct? Flight Fido, trajectory go. Roger, Fido. How you, booster? We're go, flight. Guidance, flight, how you? Looks good, flight. Real good. Okay. Stand by for 1 Charlie. Mark 1 Charlie. Mark, mode 1 Charlie, Apollo 8. 1 feet. Staging status, booster. Go, flight, Fido. Go, flight, guidance. Guidance, flight. Go, flight. Staging status? We're go. Go for staging, Captain. Apollo 8, Houston, you are inboard out, flight. Staging, over. Inboard out, flight. Copy, inboard out, about on time, huh? Right. How you, Econ? Everything good, flight. Stay a little noisy. GNC, we're go, flight. That work, you get that CP back in? But checking, flight. Okay. ETO 2 minutes, flight. Okay. S1C cutout. Roger. S2 ignition. Roger, S2. All engines good? AU shift. Thrust looks good, flight. All engines. Roger. Flight Fido, trajectory go. Roger, Fido. Flight lane safety go. Roger, no more reports, please. Thank you. Roger. Confirm second plane set, flight. Roger. How you, Fido? We're go, flight, right on. Roger.
Propellant tanks aboard the 3 stages of the Saturn V will be pressurizing. Primarily, we use helium on the ground to pressurize these tanks. The various vent valves will close as the countdown proceeds. We've now passed 2 minutes, 35 seconds, and counting, all still going well. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. We should be getting an indication on pressurization of the 3rd stage. We have it here in the control center, 2 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. The 3rd stage now is pressurized. We'll be looking toward those 5 engines in the 1st stage of the Saturn V. The ignition sequence to start at the 8.9 second mark in the countdown. We're now coming up on the 2 minute mark. Mark, T-minus 2 minutes and counting. T-minus 2, all aspects of the mission still go at this time. The Apollo 9 crew standing by in the spacecraft. 1 minute, 50 seconds and counting. Once the ignition sequence does begin with the 5 engines, it'll take some 9 seconds or so to build up the proper thrust. The computers will automatically sample those engines and assure ourselves that we have 95% of the thrust. We will get a commit at that time, and the 4 hold-on arms will come back. We're now 90 seconds and counting. 90 seconds and counting. Vice President Agnew now has come up to the window here in the Launch Control Center along with members of the party to view the launch. 1 minute, 20 seconds and counting. All indications are we are still go at this time. 3rd stage propellant tanks have been pressurized. Final check of several panels by lunar module pilot Rusty Swikert. 2nd stage tanks now pressurized. Swikert confirms that he has the proper readings. 1 minute and counting. T-minus 55 seconds and counting, all still going well. We're coming up on the power transfer. Mark, 50 seconds and counting. We're now on internal power with the 3 stages and instrument unit of the Saturn V. All propellant tanks in the 2nd stage now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. The vehicle now completely pressurized. The vents closed. We are go. 30 seconds and counting. T-minus 25 seconds and counting. All aspects still go at this time as the computer monitors. 20 seconds. Guidance release 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. Commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Roll
Plus 17.
program is in.
Roll and pitch program are in now to put Apollo 9 on the proper flight, azimuth, and attitude. Half a mile high. Roll is complete.
Pounds on the vehicle. It's 8 miles high at that point, 4 miles downrange. That's when you see the contrail begin, right at that point. It's moving then at some 1,786 miles an hour. Then in 2 minutes, 15 seconds into the flight, the inboard engines cut off, and just 20 seconds later, the outboard engine of the S-1C, the first stage of the rocket. It's then 40 miles high, 44 miles downrange. Then the separation of the first stage and the ignition of the second stage, 2 minutes and 43 seconds into the flight. And we see the launch escape system. We've seen it jettisoned in the past at 3 minutes and 17 seconds. The second stage cuts off at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. The vehicle then 111 miles downrange, or high, and 700 miles downrange, almost in its orbital height. And we have seen that far in the past with these remarkable long lens cameras here. We may not be able to see that today because of the cloud cover. The third stage then ignites at 9 minutes into the flight, and they're well on their way into orbit, and shortly thereafter, in the second orbit around the Earth, into the translunar flight. Jack King of Launch Control here, who will be giving us the countdown from this moment. He is giving that countdown now, and it is at just 3 minutes before launch. Let's listen to Jack King.
This is Apollo Saturn Launch Control. We've just passed the 3-minute mark. We've had the firing command. That's the signal that the automatic sequence is now in. And the remainder of the count will be handled by the master computer here in the firing room as various of events click off leading up to the ignition of the 5 engines in the first stage of the Saturn V at the zero, with liftoff at the 0 mark in the count. The actual ignition of those 5 engines will come at 8.9 seconds in the count. We'll have a report of all engines running at the 2-second mark. At that time, and over the next 2 seconds, those engines will be specially checked to assure that we have proper thrust. Once that occurs, we will get commit, meaning that the hold-down arms can release, and we will get liftoff of the Saturn V launch vehicle atop 7.5 million pounds of thrust. We're now coming up toward the 2-minute mark in the count. At this point, the tanks in the vehicle pressurizing. 2 minutes and counting. Our status board indicates here in the control room that all aspects involved are ready. Tom Stafford has just reported back that they want to thank everybody for all the help. We're now at T-minus 1 minute, 45 seconds and counting. We'll go on internal power with the launch vehicle at the 50-second mark. At 17 seconds in the count, the guidance system goes internal. This is guidance reference release. We already have the proper flight azimuth in. Now 90 seconds and counting. Now 90 and counting. The astronauts have turned off their ground communication at this time. However, they are on VHF and, of course, the S-band circuits, as well as the special astronaut communication circuit. 1 minute, 12 seconds and counting. The vehicle tanks beginning to pressurize at this time. Our status board indicates that the 3rd stage tanks are now pressurized. We're coming up on the 60-second mark. 60 seconds and counting. We are go for a mission to the moon at this time. The 2nd stage tanks now pressurizing, and we're coming up on the power transfer. 50 seconds and counting. We have now switched to internal power satisfactorily on the batteries of the 1st stage, all 3 stages of the Saturn V vehicle. 40 seconds and counting. Tom Stafford making a final check of his computer. The vehicle, all stages pressurized at this time. We're waiting for the swing arms to come back. One should be coming back at this time, a second one at 17 seconds. Tom Stafford reports they are go. We're coming up in the 20-second mark. T-minus 20 seconds and counting. 17 seconds and counting. Guidance internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. Engines on. 5, 4, 3, 2. All engines running. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff 49 minutes past the hour. Stafford reports the clock has started. The tower is clear.
Tom Stafford acknowledges the roll and pitch program to put Apollo 2 on the proper course.
What a beautiful sight that is. Picture will break up a little bit because we are getting buffeted here now by the tremendous reverberations from that great engine. The building is shaking, the cameras are shaking. Rockets disappearing into the clouds. Back out through that cloud layer. It looks like it's go. It looks like everything is going very well. Like a beauty so far.
Yeah, the pressure is relieving.
It's almost directly overhead here.
1 mile, 3.3 nautical miles high.
The voice you hear now is Jack Riley, Mission Control in Houston.
What a ride, babe. What a ride.
Sounds like Stafford saying, what a nice ride.
Gene Cernan reporting, what a ride.
Roger. Going 3 minutes 2. Roger. Ken, you're through the max Q. You're looking good. 2 1/4 G's. Looking good.
One minute, 44 seconds, downrange 7 miles, 12 miles high.
They successfully passed through max Q.
Roger, copy, Tom.
You're hearing communication from the spacecraft.
Code 1 Charlie, you're looking great. 1 Charlie and 3 G's at first.
You're hearing
Go
their...
for staging, Ken.
You're hearing the voice of the command pilot, Tom Stafford,
Right.
and the voice of Mission Control in Houston.
Inboard engines are out.
Roger, copy, Tom. EDS off, 10.
Charlie Duke asking the crew to turn off their emergency detection system.
That's staging you saw there.
Roger.
That was the first
Good
stage.
ignition on the second stage.
First stage blowing away from the rocket, leaving now just the second stage, third stage, and the rocket.
10 on the S2. It's looking good. Confirm EDS off. Roger.
Flight Dynamics reports trajectory go at 3 minutes 9 seconds, downrange 81 miles, 46 miles high. Second plane separation, that's the skirt around the engines on the second stage.
Plane set.
And the launch escape tower has jettisoned.
Man, that staging was quite a sequence.
Right, sounded like it.
And we have guidance initiated.
We confirm that, 10.
Roger.
The S2 is looking beautiful, Tom. Everything's copacetic.
Roger.
Listen to that beautiful communications from that command module.
Charlie Duke talking to Tom Stafford.
Yeah, I bet.
Just like old time. It's beautiful out there.
You guys sound ecstatic.
Man, this is the greatest, Charlie. Charlie, babe, it's fantastic, babe, really.
That's Gene Cernan with Fantastic.
Your go, trajectory and guidance look good.
Roger. We look right on the line on board.
20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program.
Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading. Plus 30 seconds.
Roll complete and a pitch program.
Altitude's 2 miles.
Oh, 11 Houston, you're good at 1 minute.
Downrange 1 mile, altitude 4 miles now. Velocity 2,195 feet per second.
Running up the volume on his VHF. 50 seconds and counting. 50. We've now gone internal power with the launch vehicle. We're on the internal batteries in the 3 stages of the Saturn V. T-minus 40 seconds and counting. The spacecraft commander now performing his final function, pressing a button to align the guidance and control system of the spacecraft. Coming up on 30. Mark, T-minus 30 seconds and counting. T-minus 30. 25 seconds and counting. We're still proceeding. T-minus 20. 17 seconds. Swing arm back. We have guidance internal. 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. Commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff, 11:22 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pete Conrad reports that your program is in. Tower clear.
The roll program in this baby is really going.
Pete Conrad reporting the roll and pitch program to put Apollo 12 on the proper course. 1/2 mile.
Roll complete.
Roger, Pete.
Seconds.
Mark 1 Bravo.
Altitude 1.5 miles now. Velocity 1,592 feet per second.
Where's got your GDC? Okay, we just lost the platform, gang. I don't know what happened here. We had
now is on its own internal cooling. It's been sharing its cooling from it, getting its cooling from an external power source up to this time. We're now approaching the T-minus 1 minute mark. T-minus 1 minute. T-minus 1 minute. And counting.
More buffeting today
now
because
in
of the
the
low
final
cloud
minute
cover.
of our countdown.
We get quite a shaking
at the
here.
30-second
Then
mark.
they keep the sound down, you're right. Interesting one. We'll see if they place holes together.
As we pass the T-minus 50-second mark, the power transfer takes place. First stage, second stage, third stage, and the instrument unit going to internal power. T-minus 37 seconds, and our count continues to go well. We'll be looking for an ignition of those 5 first stage engines at the T-minus 8.9 second mark. We've passed T-minus 30, T-minus 25 seconds and counting, and Apollo 13 is go. T-minus 20 seconds, T-minus 20 seconds and counting. 17, guidance release, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13. The Saturn V building up to 7.6 million pounds of thrust, and it has cleared the tower.
This is mission control. Here we go. It's a beauty. It's another beauty.
No, I think it's a jet flight.
The trajectory looks good. They show a 1/2 mile in altitude at this time.
13 Houston, go at 30 seconds. Roll completed and we're pitching. Roger that. Be advised to load 1 Bravo. Mark 1 Bravo. 1 Houston in.
Altitude 1.2 miles.
I'm shaking here, but what a beautiful flight.
Watching her for a long way. That cloud cover isn't interfering yet.
No, it's just almost
Just getting into it.
There it is.
13 Houston, go at 1. We show the cabin relieving. 13, roger.
And at 1 minute 10 seconds, we show an altitude of 4.1 nautical miles. Downrange 1 mile.
And we're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
All sources continue to report where go. The trajectory on our plot boards is right on the pre-planned line. It's a good one. Looks like a very good one.
There, you can see that.
Third stage tanks now are pressurized according to our status board here in the firing room. 1 minute, 10 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control coming up in 60 seconds. Mark, T-minus 60 seconds and counting. Still go with the count. First stage tanks are now pressurized as our status board gives us a rundown on the automatic sequence. 50 seconds and counting. We've now gone on internal power on the internal batteries of the Saturn V as the count continues. 40 seconds and counting. Alan Shepard reports that he's performing his final guidance alignment, the final maneuver the astronauts perform before liftoff. 30 seconds and counting. Stu Russo just said, thanks, it's been a good count. 25 seconds and counting. We are still go. 20 seconds, guidance alert. The guidance system now going internal. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff with Apollo 14. 3 minutes past the hour. The tower is clear.
Houston is controlling. That's right now. 60 seconds. Pitch and roll program started. 14 maneuvering to a proper flight course.
pressure coming down, adjusting from sea level to a space environment.
We have a remote camera
Status
working,
check
right?
in mission control, coming up all greens on the flight director's console.
In Houston, everything looks good here on the ground.
Roger.
How about
1 minute,
that picture,
19
Ron?
seconds
That's
coming
great.
up on period of maximum
This must be-
aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle.
That camera you see is further downrange. It's down the Florida coast here, and apparently they've got a clear shot.
I think this is the Vero Beach camera, in fact,
Yeah.
way down there. Yes, it looks great.
It's what, 60 miles down the coast.
1 minute, 35 seconds, 9 nautical miles in altitude, 5 nautical miles downrange. Velocity now reading 3,340 feet per second.
They've been through the first real test, that maximum dynamic pressure area. That came at 1 minute, 25 seconds into the flight. That's where they get the maximum buffeting as they escape.
Pass through max Q.
Mode 1 Charlie. Mark, 1 Charlie now.
We're 1 Charlie. EDS auto's off.
We ought to be seeing the
2
first
minutes,
stage
5
shut down
seconds
now.
coming up on center engine shutdown. 2 minutes, 12 seconds, 20 nautical miles in altitude.
Inboard cutoff.
Roger, inboard.
Center engine shut down on time.
That's
2 minutes, 25 seconds, 25 nautical miles in altitude, 30 nautical miles downrange.
Another 15 seconds, all those first stage engines cut down. The other 4 on the outer
Mark,
ring.
2 minutes, 35 seconds coming up on staging.
That's a great shot.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Roger.
And separation.
Roger.
Ignition on 5.
Roger.
Great. That next stage is
Head
going.
staging, the Shepherd crew now riding on 5 good second stage engines.
On 5 engine.
Look at that. You can see that big first stage
Roger,
dropping
we
back
confirm
there.
good thrust on all 5.
This is the one we hope to fly
The
back
giant
sometime in the
first stage
future.
falling away now. It's day's work done.
That's a frightening
3 minutes, 10 seconds coming up on skirt sep and tower jettison.
explosion when that thing disintegrates. You think the whole thing's gone.
Should see it from the inside. You can see it, really.
There you see the tower jettison.
And now they can all look out. That's the tower that had more power than Al flew on before. There she goes.
Roger, Ed.
Great sequence.
That's the best picture.
3 minutes, 35 seconds, 14 now, 33 feet shorter, 9,000 pounds lighter, moving out well beyond the Earth's atmosphere. We show an altitude of 16 nautical miles.
That's the top.
Still going well. The pressurization sequence is still continuing in the vehicle. We're now 90 seconds away from liftoff, all still going well. We're going internal power with the vehicle at the 50-second mark in the count. We now get indications from our status board that all is still going well, and the third stage is now completely pressurized. Coming up shortly on the 1 minute mark, we're now 70 seconds and counting. Second stage tanks are pressurized as our countdown continues. Mark, T-minus 60 seconds and counting on Apollo 15. The astronauts are go, launch vehicle and spacecraft components all go as our countdown proceeds. Now 50 seconds, we have the power transfer. The vehicle now on the battery power in the vehicle, and all is still going well. Lunar Module pilot Jim Irwin making some final checks, now passing the 40-second mark. Spacecraft Commander Dave Scott now has made his final check. That is aligning the guidance system. 30 seconds and counting. The guidance system will go internal at the 17-second mark. Now 25 seconds. We have complete clearance to launch. We are go. 20. 15 seconds. Guidance internal. 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. Engines armed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All engines running. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff at 9:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The tower is clear.
And we have a roll program.
Roger. You have good thrust on all 5 engines.
Settings total, roll complete.
Roger.
And we have a pitch program.
Roger.
S1C engines gulping 3 tons of fuel per second.
Inboard?
Roger, inboard.
That was the center engine cutting off. 4 still burning.
Flight dynamics reports go for staging.
Staging means the separation of the first stage from the remainder of the rocket. There you are.
14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. We have ignition sequence start. The engine's now building up to 7.7 million pounds of thrust. We have a launch commit and we have a liftoff. The swing arm moving back. The Saturn V lifting off the power. Alpha pad building up thrust. We clear the tower. Houston is now controlling.
Oh, you have good thrust in all 5. Roger.
Pitch and roll program started. 16 now maneuvering to its proper flight path attitude. Mark 27 seconds. Roll program completed. Pitch profile still in progress. 40 seconds. Mark 50 seconds. Cabin pressure relieving. Adjusting now from sea level to a space environment. 2 nautical miles in altitude.
Cabin relieving. 1 Bravo. Roger, 1 Bravo. You're wet now, 16.
That call out from Capcom Gordon Fullerton says Apollo 16 now capable of water landing. Mark 1 minute 12 seconds coming up on period of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. One minute 22 seconds, 6 nautical miles in altitude, looking good.
Critical power transfer. This is where we transfer from the external power source, which has been feeding the 3 stages of the launch vehicle, to internal power. That's to the flight batteries aboard the space vehicle. It's expected that given proper weather conditions, people will be observing this flight from as much as 500 miles away. This includes a large portion of the southeastern United States, the northern tip of Cuba, and the Bahama Islands. Now approaching the 2-minute mark. Mark, T-minus 2 minutes and counting, and the countdown continues to move along smoothly. The automatic sequencer has stopped the replenishing of the liquid oxygen and the liquid hydrogen. We're standing by now to begin pressurization of the fuel tanks. The 2nd stage fuel tank pressurized, 3rd stage fuel tank pressurized. The countdown continuing to move along smoothly. T-minus 90 seconds. T-minus 90 seconds. Countdown continuing smoothly. S4B propellants pressurized. The indication now using the workaround showing the S4B propellants have been pressurized. Now looking at the liquid hydrogen tanks as they become pressurized. LH2 aboard the second stage, pressurized. All propellants now aboard the second stage, pressurized as we approach the 1 minute mark in the countdown. Mark, T-minus 1 minute and counting now in the final minute of the countdown. At T-minus 45 seconds, Gene Cernan will make the final guidance alignment. This is the Mark, T-minus 45, and Gene Cernan made that final guidance alignment. That's the last action taken by the crew aboard the space vehicle. Now approaching the half-minute mark. T-minus 33, T-minus 30 seconds, and continuing on now. Continuing on at the T-minus 26-second mark, T-minus 25. We'll get a final guidance release at the T-minus 17-second mark. T-minus 17, final guidance release. We'll expect engine ignition at 8.9 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, ignition sequence started. All engines are started. We have ignition. 2, 1, 0. We have a liftoff. We have a liftoff, and it's lighting up the area. It's just like daylight here at Kennedy Space Center as the Saturn V is moving off the pad. It has now cleared the tower.
Roger, tower. You're complete. We're on the roll, Bob. Looking great. Thrust good on all 5 engines. Okay, babe. It's looking good here. Roll is complete. We are pitching. Wow, okay, babe. Let's check the angle. 30 seconds. We're going up. Man, away. 30 seconds and 17 is go. 17, your go. Okay, 1 minute, 68 degrees. Okay. Everything looks great over here. Okay. Okay. Stand by for max, coming through max Q. We'll be at 68 degrees. Okay. Change, stand by for mode 1 Bravo. Mark, mode 1 Bravo. Roger, 1 Bravo, we're going 1 minute. Team, you're looking great. Right on the line. Okay, we got the RCS command. Team, you are feet wet, feet wet. Roger, feet wet. Yeah, this thing shakes like the sun. Yeah, that's max Q. Wait till we get out of max Q. Stay down there, Q meter. Yeah. About 50 degrees. 50 degrees, okay, right on. 130 and we are go, Bob. You're looking great. Good. 2 Gs. 2.5 Gs. See it quiets out after max Q. Yeah, quiets out. Pushing 3 Gs. Okay, can't hold my hand up anymore. Yep. Okay, we're out of max Q. Okay. Cabin's still looking good. Alpha's PC. Okay, stand by for... Hi, for mode 1 Charlie, 17. 1 Charlie. Mode 1 Charlie. Roger, 1 Charlie, 2 minutes. EDS is off and we are go. 3 Gs. 17 years, go. Hey, read that full couple of Gs. 3 Gs, 3.5. Stand by for inboard. 10, you are go for staging.
Stage, they keep pumping fuel into it until right at the last minute. Over in the control center, the men are ready for the launch. As John said a minute ago, they've been conducting a double countdown. They are now into an automatic sequence, which means that a bank of computers is handling all of the last-minute details, getting up ready to launch. Again, the 3 astronauts go into orbit tomorrow. Everything has to go well with this launch today. Several things have to happen for it to be put into the proper kind of shape for them to join it. But again, there have been no problems. And we are going to join now, I think, Chuck Hollingshead, who is the voice of Skylab, for the countdown to the launch.
At liftoff. Liftoff will follow an ignition at 8.9 seconds. We just passed the 90-second mark in the countdown. At 8.9 seconds in the count, we'll expect to get an engine sequence start on the 5 first-stage engines of the Saturn V. They'll build up thrust. That thrust will be monitored. The vehicle will be held down for the full 8.9 seconds, and we'll expect to get liftoff right at T0. We're approaching the 1 minute mark in our countdown at this time as it proceeds smoothly. Mark, T-minus 1 minute and continuing to count. A water deluge system now has been turned on,
activated at the pad area. Pressurization taking place now, the various tanks aboard the vehicle being pressurized. Switching to internal power. All stages switching now to internal power. All propellant tanks being pressurized. Count continuing smoothly. The water at the pad covering the flame deflectors. Now we've passed the 30-second mark. Water also will be coming on to the decks of the mobile launcher at the ignition point. T-minus 20 seconds, and the countdown continues to go smoothly. Guidance release, T-minus 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. We have ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And we have a liftoff. The Skylab lifting off the pad now, moving up. Skylab has cleared the tower. Houston is now controlling. Mark, 18 seconds, engine roll. Are now maneuvering to the proper flight path attitude. Mark, 25 seconds. Mark, 30 seconds. 35 seconds, 1 nautical mile in altitude, looking good. Range safety, give Saturn a green, we've cleared the beach. Mark, 50 seconds, 2.5 nautical miles in altitude. Ground display data shows good stable thrust on all 5 engines. Coming up now in 1 minute. Mark, 1 minute. 1 minute, 5 seconds, 4 nautical miles in altitude. Coming up now and period of maximum aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. 1 minute, 10 seconds. Roll program complete. Pitch profile still in progress. Mark, 1 minute, 20 seconds, 7 nautical miles in altitude. Velocity now reading 2,500 feet per second. Mark, 1 minute, 30 seconds, pass through max Q, still looking good. Saturn now at 11 nautical miles in altitude, 5 nautical miles downrange, velocity now reading 3,300 feet per second. 1 minute, 45 seconds, all sources continuing to look good. 1 minute, 56 seconds.